Alright, we're going to review the different types of variables, and I'm going to use a little video here to help me. First, I'm going to review what a variable is real quick.
Given study, you are trying to measure or evaluate certain elements that change value depending on certain factors. These are called variables. Think of the word vary, which means to change, and you'll be able to remember variable. Some variables change from person to person. For example, height is a variable because it changes from person to person. If everyone in the world was the same exact height, it would not be a variable. Likewise, IQ varies from person to person, so it is another variable. Day, and then a month from now, their age has changed. There are three main types of variables.
Alright, so there's a little review on variables. Now, in this video, she's going to talk about three types of variables: continuous, discrete, and categorical. But we're going to focus on continuous and categorical. Discrete really is a type of a categorical variable that uses a number. So we're going to show a little clip here on continuous, and then categorical, and then I'll combine the two together.
So you want to do a study to see if taller people are smarter. One of the first things that has to be done when designing a study is to identify your variables. In our study above, height and IQ are the variables that we are measuring. Let's say that we want to measure height in inches. Some people might be 62 inches, and one or two might be 82 inches. And then there are a bunch of people in between those two heights. A continuous variable is one that can take any value between two numbers. For example, between 62 and 82 inches, there are a lot of possibilities. One participant might be 64.03891 inches tall, and another person might be 72.67025 inches tall. And there are literally millions of other possible heights between 62 and 82 inches. So how do you know if you've got a continuous variable? In general, a continuous variable is one that is measured, not counted. Height, for example, is measured. Weight is measured. Temperature, time, distance, all are continuous variables.
So open up to your measures or results section and look at some of the variables you have in your articles and see if you can find any continuous variables. Next, we're going to cover categorical variables and combine in discrete, because discrete really is a categorical variable that uses a number. I'm going to show a quick description of what discrete is as it goes into categorical, so you can see how the two work together.
To help see the difference between continuous and discrete variables, imagine a really tall mountain with a trail leading up to the top. Because the view is so wonderful, lots of people want to go to the top of the mountain. But not everyone is in shape enough to hike to the top. So they install an elevator with 3 stops: the bottom of the mountain, halfway up the mountain, and at the mountain's peak. Now people have two options. They can take the trail or the elevator.
Okay, so the trail and the elevator, since there's only two options, that's actually your dichotomous variable sneaking in here. So there's only two choices. That's also like gender, in many cases, is male or female. But if you add in transgender or something else, gender is no longer dichotomous and it would become categorical. So dichotomous is when there's only two choices available, like take the elevator or take the path.
Mountain, halfway up the mountain, and at the mountain's peak. Now people have two options. They can take the trail or the elevator. The trail is like a continuous variable. A person on the trail can stop at any point between the bottom and the top. But the elevator has just 3 possible places to stop. It is
Because there's only 3 possible choices, it is discrete because there's 3 numbers, but it's also categories. You can have the bottom category, middle of the mountain category, or top of the mountain category. That's why a discrete variable is a type of categorical variable.
discrete because there are only certain values, or places, that it can stop. So we know that continuous variables can take on any value, and that discrete variables only have certain values. But what if our variable doesn't come in number form? Let's go once more to our study on IQ. But now let's say that we want to compare gender and IQ to see if girls are smarter than boys. Gender is a categorical variable, or a variable that involves two or more non-numeric groups. Gender is categorical because people are either male or female. Marital status is another categorical variable. A person can be married, single, divorced, widowed, and so on. Hair color, major, political affiliation, how depressed a person feels, all of these are categorical variables. Note the categorical variables are non-numeric. That is, when they are measured, they do not have a number. Sometimes a researcher might assign a number to a categorical variable, but that number does not tell us anything about the variable. For example, we might decide to code gender in our study so that all the males get the number 0 and all the females get the number 1. What does that mean? It doesn't tell us anything about males or females, just that a person is a member of that group.
So there's your review of the 5 different types of variables that are covered in here. Now remember again that discrete is considered a different type of variable, but in research we combine it with categorical variables because it's treated the same way when you do statistical analyses. So please open up your 3 articles and see if you can find any continuous variables and any categorical variables. You may have a dichotomous variable as well. Now the last 2 variables words that we have are dependent and independent variable. In the example that we just read of whether or not height affects IQ, the variable that we want to know what affects, or the one that the pie was about, in class we used marital satisfaction, that is your dependent variable, because it's the one that we think is going to change. It's dependent on those other things. In the marital satisfaction, we said that marital satisfaction was dependent on things like communication and entertainment and maybe even name. So those would be your independent variables, the ones that we think are affecting the other. So here, in this example, if you want to go back, we can see that height might affect IQ. So IQ is the dependent variable and height the independent variable. So if you look at yours study, any of in your articles, then you should have 1, maybe 2, but generally 1 dependent variable. That's the main thing we're looking at changing the value of. And then multiple independent variables that we think will cause it. Let's say you see a table such as this in your results section. We can see here the different variables: gender, questions, medication, monitoring. So these are all different variables. And in here we don't see an outcome variable. So this is the correlations. But if you find one here that has a word like regressions in it, then you'll be able to see the independent variables on this side and dependent variables on the top. So this chart actually does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dependent variables, but it's really showing them each separately as if there was a line right here. So this is marital quality as the independent variable affecting spouse total questions, the dependent variable. Patient total questions, independent variable. Spouse total questions, dependent variable. And here these other variables were not included. That's what the dashes mean. And then gender, again, is a dichotomous, in this case, independent variable predicting spouse total questions, the dependent variable. So that may help you, if you go to your results sections, be able to find some tables or charts, and you can look for this little beta sign that can maybe help you see if you're in the right kind of table to identify these different types of variables and hopefully help you understand these vocabulary words.